At 74, my dad walked into a nursing home expecting a quick recovery. What he didn't expect was a brutal wake-up call that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Within days, everything he thought he knew about aging, dignity, and family was ripped apart. He wasn't just fighting to regain his health. He was fighting to keep his spirit alive in a place where too many seniors are quietly forgotten. He saw loneliness more painful than any illness. He saw strength stripped away, one small freedom at a time. And he realized getting old doesn't just happen. It's something you have to fight against every single day. This isn't a story about hospitals or healthcare. This is a warning, a glimpse into what really happens behind those clean hallways and friendly smiles. Today, I'm sharing the 7 brutal lessons my dad learned after just 2 months inside. Lessons that shook him and our entire family to the core. If you think aging gracefully is automatic, think again. What you do now will decide whether you stay in control or slowly disappear without even realizing it. My dad was 74 years old when the stroke hit. It wasn't massive, thank God, but it was enough to shake us. His right side weakened slightly, his speech slurred just a bit, and he tired far too easily. The hospital kept him for a few days, patched him up, then told us he needed some time in a skilled nursing facility for rehab before he could go home. We thought it would be simple. A few weeks, some therapy, a little rest. That's what the doctors promised. That's what we told ourselves. And so, with cautious optimism, we helped him pack a small bag. A few shirts, his slippers, some books he loved, and a framed photo of Mom, who had passed 5 years earlier. Walking into the nursing home, we were greeted by smiling staff and the smell of bleach. The lobby had a fake fireplace and a TV blaring daytime game shows. It didn't seem terrible. In fact, it looked clean and organized. We figured this was the right place for him to heal, to rebuild his strength and get back to the life he loved. Gardening, playing chess with his buddies at the community center, teasing his grandkids. But within the first week, the cracks started to show. Dad's room was down a long, quiet hallway, where most of the doors were shut tight. Some residents shuffled slowly past his door, clutching walkers with shaking hands. Others sat slumped in wheelchairs, staring at nothing. Conversations were rare, smiles even rarer. There was a heaviness in the air, a strange kind of stillness you could almost feel pressing down on your chest. It wasn't the silence of peace, it was the silence of resignation, of people who had stopped expecting anything better to happen. At first, Dad stayed hopeful. He woke up early for physical therapy, tried to do the exercises the therapists assigned. He asked the nurses questions, joked with the aides. He tried to read his novels, to stay sharp. But day after day, the atmosphere wore him down. He realized quickly that most of the other residents weren't there to recover. They were there to stay, indefinitely. Many suffered from dementia at various stages. Some didn't recognize their own names. Others wandered the halls, confused and frightened, muttering things that didn't make sense. Some simply sat still for hours, their eyes vacant, as if the part of them that once dreamed, loved, and hoped had quietly slipped away. Dad wasn't one of them, at least not yet. But being surrounded by so much helplessness, so much disconnection from the world, started to gnaw at him. The staff, while polite on the surface, were rushed, stretched thin. They followed routines like clockwork, medications at this time, meals at that time, bed at another. There wasn't much room for conversation, laughter, or personal choice. Life there was dictated by the needs of the many, not the individuality of the few. Dad, who had always been fiercely independent, found himself needing to ask permission for the smallest things. Want to go outside for fresh air? You had to wait for someone to unlock the door. Want an extra blanket because you're cold? You had to push the call button and hope someone came in less than an hour. Even meals were served at rigid times, with little choice over what was on the plate. He hated it. Not just the waiting or the loss of freedom, but the feeling that he was starting to become invisible. Just another body in a wheelchair, another name on a clipboard. At night, he listened to the sounds around him, residents crying out in confusion, aides whispering to each other at the nurse's station, the low hum of televisions left on because people were too lonely to turn them off. He said the nights were the hardest. That's when the fear crept in. Fear that this wasn't temporary. Fear that he might never leave. We visited him almost every day, but even that started to feel hollow. Visits were squeezed between medication schedules and therapy appointments. Sometimes, by the time we got there, he was too exhausted to talk for long. Other times, he didn't want to worry us with how bad it really was. Still, he kept pushing. He forced himself to do extra laps in the hallway. He practiced standing up without assistance. He worked on his speech exercises. Quietly, stubbornly, he fought to claw his way out. Meanwhile, he watched others give up. He saw a man who used to greet everyone with a wave stop lifting his hand. He saw a woman who once asked for help with crossword puzzles now stare blankly at the wall for hours. The slow erosion of spirit in that place was almost more terrifying than any physical disability. After a month, Dad confided something to me during one of our visits. Sitting on the edge of his narrow bed, his hands trembling slightly, he said, "I thought the worst thing about getting old would be my body giving out. I was wrong. The worst thing is feeling like you don't matter anymore." That conversation gutted me. It also lit a fire under him. Dad made a decision right then. If he had any control left over his life, he was going to fight like hell to keep it. The final month was a blur of small victories. Standing for 5 minutes without support, walking the hallway without a walker, remembering how to write a full sentence without struggling for the words. Each little triumph, invisible to the busy staff, meant everything to him and to us. Finally, after 2 grueling months, Dad's physical therapist signed off on his release. Not because the facility wanted him out. They probably preferred patients who didn't make waves, but because he had met every milestone they set for discharge. Leaving that building for the last time, Dad said it felt like escaping prison. But he also carried something heavier with him. A deeper understanding of what aging can really look like in America, if you're not careful. A fear of losing independence, not because your body fails you, but because the world starts treating you like you've already disappeared. That was just the beginning. The real lessons, the ones that would change everything, were still to come. And that's when Dad started sharing the lessons, the brutal truths he learned behind those heavy doors. Not from textbooks, not from doctors, but from living it day after day. Here's what he told us. 1. Loneliness kills faster than any disease. He watched strong bodies crumble when their hearts gave up hope. The ones who had visitors, phone calls, real human connection, they fought harder. The ones left alone, they faded like forgotten photographs. Dad realized it wasn't the stroke that scared him most. It was the idea of being invisible, of living out his days in a chair, unnoticed, unloved. He told us, if you love someone, show up. It matters more than you'll ever know. In that place, attention wasn't just kindness, it was survival. 2. Health isn't something you can buy back. Dad met residents who once had big homes, fat bank accounts, expensive cars. None of it mattered now. Their bodies had slipped beyond their control, and no amount of money could undo the damage. He realized he had taken his own strength for granted for too long. "You can't wait until you're sick to start caring about your health," he said. "You have to fight for it every single day when you're still able. Wealth may make life comfortable, but it can't give you back your body once it starts to fail." Third, possessions mean nothing at the end. Inside the nursing home, there were no luxury items. No one cared about jewelry, brand names, or trophies. What mattered was whether someone still came to visit, whether anyone still remembered their stories. Dad said it hit him hard. He had spent decades chasing things that would one day gather dust. In the end, all people craved was connection, love, and memories. "You can't take your stuff with you," he said, "but you can leave behind a feeling. Make sure it's a good one." 4. Independence is your most precious treasure. For someone like Dad, who had spent his life fixing things, solving problems, and taking care of others, needing help to button a shirt was crushing. Every small loss of independence felt like losing a piece of himself. Watching others surrender completely to the routine of the home terrified him. He fought like hell to stand, to walk, to make his own decisions, no matter how long it took. "The ability to choose for yourself," he said, "is the last real freedom we have. Never give it up without a fight." 5. Real joy lives in the smallest moments. It wasn't big celebrations or grand achievements that lifted Dad's spirit. It was tiny, almost invisible things. A sunny afternoon when he could sit outside. The scent of coffee in the morning. A joke shared with a nurse who actually smiled. Those fleeting moments reminded him he was still alive, still human. He said, "Don't wait for the big milestones to feel grateful. Most of life's sweetness is hiding in the little, ordinary things you barely notice until they're gone." 6. Forgiveness is more for you than for them. Dad saw plenty of old anger inside those walls. Residents who hadn't spoken to children in years. Friends who had fallen out over things nobody remembered. The bitterness aged them faster than any illness. He realized holding on to resentment was like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. "If you want peace," he told me, "you have to let it go. Forgive people. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Carrying anger into old age only chains you to your past." 7. Every day above ground is a blessing. After watching some residents pass quietly in their sleep, and others struggle for each breath, Dad realized how fragile life truly is. He stopped assuming he had unlimited tomorrows. Every sunrise became a small miracle. Every step without pain, a victory. "If you wake up breathing, you've been given a gift," he said. "Don't waste it." He made a vow to live as fully as he could, even if his steps were slower, even if his world had gotten smaller. Life was still precious. Life still mattered. When Dad finally walked out of that nursing home, he wasn't just a man recovering from a stroke. He was a man who had seen the future and decided to fight like hell against it. He changed everything. He started small. Daily walks, no matter how slow. Healthy meals he cooked himself, even if it took all afternoon. Phone calls every week to old friends he hadn't spoken to in years. He forgave people he once swore he'd never talk to again. He sat outside in the mornings, soaking up the sun like a man starved for warmth. And he refused to live passively. He stayed sharp by reading, learning new hobbies, even trying basic yoga for seniors. He kept a gratitude journal, He said, "Thank you," more. He laughed louder. Most of all, he lived with urgency. Not panic, but purpose. He knew every day wasn't promised. So he made damn sure to love harder, forgive faster, and squeeze joy out of even the smallest moments. Dad didn't just survive that nursing home. He came back to life. Thanks so much for being here with us today. We'd really love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us one thing you took away from this video and how you're planning to use it in your life. Your thoughts truly matter to us, and reading your comments gives us the energy to keep going. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who might need it.